In this episode, we are going to talk with the folks at TapRoot, Mark Paradies and Alex Paradies. We did something unique with this episode in that it was recorded live at the 2024 TapRoot Global Summit outside of Austin, Texas. And it was earlier this summer, and I am on the road. I don't know if you can tell by the audio quality here on this episode, but I'm on the road and I wanted to drop this video, the audio from this video, I should say, to keep podcast episodes coming for you. If you want to see the full video, you can do so for free over at the SafetyPro Podcast Community site. The link is in the show notes. Just sign up for a free account. All we ask for is a username and your email. That's it. We don't spam you. We don't sell your information. It's totally free to set up that free account. And we do make our interviews, video interviews for episodes available over there for viewing as well. For podcast land, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so on, you can listen to the audio, of course. This is basically a breakout session that we did live where we recorded a conversation between the three of us, and we had some audience interaction as well. So it was a unique approach to doing a live conference breakout session. We're going to do it again in 2025, which is exciting. But at the time, Rethinking SAFETY Communications had just come out, and the book link will be in the show notes as well. And we talk about how developing a communication strategy, identifying communications channels, knowing your audience, and using storytelling can help improve human performance. And in the context of workplace safety, we know that learning about and improving human performance means reducing injuries, accidents, mishaps. So this is all about how we communicate and share and learn from the incidents that occur. So look, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and play this video and I will wrap it up at the end.
Before we get into today's topic, I have one question for you. Are you still painting your floors for 5S markings, things like that? Don't do that. Head over to mightylinetape.com/podcast, a great partner in safety. They've been with us from the beginning. They have some really good products that are going to get you out of a whole lot of time, material, and maintenance and upkeep. Their floor marking tape is second to none. It takes up easily, doesn't leave a sticky residue. They've got floor tape with beveled edges for forklift traffic, carts, things like that. So it really holds up well to that kind of traffic in your facility. They also can do custom floor signs. If you have a particular logo or a message, they can make that happen. Get a free sample and try it for yourself. Again, head over to mightylinetape.com/podcast. Tell them that we sent you. You will get a free sample to try out in your facility today. Again, mightylinetape.com/podcast.
Do you want to ensure you're compliant with OSHA standards? Do you wish there was a way to have a comprehensive safety audit without needing OSHA on-site? Well, how does a mock OSHA audit with a comprehensive, detailed report sound? If that sounds like what you're needing, the folks at Aero Safety can take care of you. Their mock OSHA audits include the whole 9 yards. We're talking administrative review of all safety training programs, written policies, procedures, and a physical walkthrough of your entire facility. To top it all off, the formal report they provide includes a detailed list of any deficiencies. Let's face it, we all have them. That includes pictures of those deficiencies and applicable recommended corrective actions to help you get on the road to compliance. If you'd like to discuss how a mock OSHA audit could help you improve your overall compliance and, more importantly, protect your workers, contact Aero Safety by visiting their website at aerosafetyus.com or by emailing them at info@aerosafetyus.com. Be sure to mention you heard it on the SafetyPro podcast, and you'll get 25% off your estimate. That's www.aerosafetyus.com.
All right, everybody, I'm Blaine Hoffmann. I'm with the SafetyPro podcast, and if you've seen this SafetyPro podcast, some of you may not have heard of it, but Alex has been on quite a bit. I had Mark on once early on, before even Alex.
I think Alex was on the same one, wasn't he?
No.
After. Okay.
Yeah,
and
but
he liked me better.
Yeah.
How much you pay him?
Well, apparently he's got more free time on his hands to come on so often. So maybe.
He does.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about effective communications, and we're going to focus our conversation on a particular aspect of communications, but I want to lay the foundation a little bit. This is all based on the book, Rethinking SAFETY Communications, where we stress the importance of having an effective communication strategy for your business, your organization, okay? So when it comes to safety, we're going to talk in the context of workplace safety. We often find that...
Wait a second.
Yes.
Safety, human performance, could be equipment reliability. Anybody's trying to improve.
Right. In the context of the book, it's workplace safety. So I want you to think as an example and then how it can expand to these other areas of the business. Let me ask you first real quick. In your businesses, and just this is interactive, so just blurt it out. In your businesses, which department, using air quotes here, because we love silos and departments, which one seems to really nail the communications piece or always has this polished look, feel, font, color scheme, everything? Do you have a department in your organization that always seems to... Who?
Marketing and communication.
Marketing, okay, right, exactly. Marketing communication. Anybody? How about HR? Anybody? They always seem to have some stuff out.
Some not so certain.
Hey. Listen to this guy. All right. So that's
a
good.
suggestion.
Yes.
How about the corporate communications people to shareholders?
Yes, absolutely. And so what we want to do in safety is we want to kind of like take a page out of that book. Not kind of, we absolutely want to take a page from that book. So work with those teams, the brand and marketing communications teams, to say, hey, we in the safety department, we in the quality department, whatever department you're talking about, we want to have this same approach. We want to align our communications with the voice, internal voice that we use in other areas of the business, whether it be HR, or engineering or quality. We want to make sure we do that. And so we're talking about marketing in that respect. That's the umbrella. Marketing is this umbrella under which we have, branding, we have advertising, we have public relations. And so our safety department, our quality department, whatever department, we need to develop those things. We need a logo, we need a phrase, slogan, or moniker, we need a color scheme. And so everybody recognizes instantly when they see a poster, which is advertising. They see a sign, they see an email, it's tagged with that brand, so you know exactly what it is. And then we use public relations, which we have interactions with people, meetings, we have stand-ups, we have safety events, whatever you have throughout your organization, any interaction you have should be considered public relations and should reflect that sentiment that we've established, right, through the branding and everything. So that gets us to this piece. You're going to jump in, I can tell.
I want to jump in. I can't help myself. I think you've got to have these strategies. You've got to have this in place because when you have success, and I think anybody in our programs that are implementing things, they're going to have success. If you don't communicate that well, if you don't brand your programs well, then when the next person comes in, when the next leader comes in, they're going to come in with their ideas and want to make their own impact. And so being able to communicate your story of where your organizations come from and what your gaps are, being able to communicate that well is necessary, and it's vital to make sure your program lasts and is successful in the long term. You can have short-term success, but if you don't share that success with management, if you don't share that success with other parts of your organization, then someone will come along who is better at communicating an idea, who's better at communicating what they want to do, and you're going to now be fighting for your program's survival.
Yeah. Or worse, somebody will come along and be worse at it. and lose all your steam, right?
Lose everything you've done.
Yeah. So you definitely want to align everybody. And that's what a communication strategy, a comprehensive strategy outlined. Like, this is how we are going to communicate to our organization. And it aligns managers, supervisors, department heads around that strategy. And you have one voice. That's the other thing that's important, is you need to develop a voice. So it doesn't sound like one message I get via, let's say, email is trying to communicate something that we learned from some event, some learnings. And then I get another month later, I get somebody else sending me an email, and they sound and look completely different. You want this to be a unified voice, one voice. So definitely reach out to your marketing team, your corporate communications team. They're the professionals that know how to do this and have it polished. And I don't mean polished in the sense that it's not personal. And that's what we're going to talk about, is how we can make these communications personal. The other thing you got to think about is scaling, right? You've got to be able to scale whatever message you're trying to send, and you've got to be able to match the message to the communications channel inside your organization. We have chat apps, email, posters, meetings, talking points for meetings. They're all going to say different things, right? You got to be able to scale that.
Yeah, so I think about, stories of when that didn't work. When did the communication strategy fall flat? So when I worked in manufacturing, we would roll out programs, right? You always had something new you were pushing out. It was lean this, or we were working on some sort of new corporate one strategy, one network. You're going to all have the same color uniform, whatever it was. And how you communicated that to the floor and to the employee level made a huge difference in what level of commitment you got back.
You two are hard to break in on.
Well, break in.
Jump in.
Just break in.
I agree, but I sort of disagree.
Go for it.
Let's do that one.
And the disagree part is, I think emotions play a large part in communications. And so if you've got a story that grabs somebody's heart and they think, oh my gosh, that could have been me, it makes an impact on them.
Absolutely.
Now, that impact may not be forever. The impacts wear off. But the best speakers I see have a way of relating to the audience they're speaking in front of and giving a message that reaches people's hearts. And they may not even have I really think you ought to have a message that reflects the goodness of what you're doing and the things that you're going to help them accomplish. Sometimes people don't.
Yep, right.
They're just
Absolutely.
selling BS, and that BS sounds really good.
Yeah.
And boy, they told good stories. And now my management's sold on something that's totally, maybe they have a good communication strategy, but they don't have a good product behind it. So I think you have to have performance that matches what you communicate, and you have to communicate it with sincere feelings that capture people, and they say, wow, that really applies to me. And that's the now whether now if you can package that, that's all well and good, but you got to have that first.
And you can package it, and you're bringing us right into sort of the crux of this conversation, which is that we talk about effective use of storytelling. And in the book, we break down the psychology behind communication. And you said a few things there. One, you've got to know your audience. Am I talking to a group of engineers? Am I talking to a group of frontline workers, maintenance workers, office workers, corporate folks? The other thing, you have to have a call to action. Why am I communicating this? It's probably because we are asking people to do something differently, or we are communicating that we are doing something differently as a result of something. And we're going to use a story to get there, and it doesn't have to be long and drawn out, but we have an ask or a request. And so you can't just be communicating because it's an odd curiosity. Somebody's going to go, why did I read this? Isn't very helpful. So most of the time we're asking them to do something differently. So how we can convince people is key, and we use emotions to do that. And you have positive emotions and negative emotions. And one that we talk about is something called prospect theory. Have you heard of this?
So some psychologists came up with this. They did some studies, of course. They found out that people in general, right, will respond to the loss or potential loss of something than a potential gain of something. And the example they give, and I talk about it in the book, is people will have a more significant reaction, psychological reaction, to losing $100 versus finding a $100 bill. So we can kind of leverage that in our communications, and you have to do it judiciously. You can't say, everything's going to kill you, and that's what most safety people will go to, is like, oh, okay, we're going to tell everyone that they're going to die if they don't, wear the safety toe shoe. You can over-index on anything and just lose everybody. So you have to be very careful with it. But let's talk about storytelling.
So,
go ahead.
So I was actually going to tie into what you were saying. There were some studies done on safety impact. How do you make safety an impactful thing? And what they were looking at was, this was Dr. Matthew Hallowell used to do this. He would build like a exact replica of a human hand, like exactly all the bones, the tendons, the blood, everything in there, what it would look like. And they would do live demos of crushes, severs, slices, things like that. And it bled, it was real, it was impactful. And so what he would do is look at the change in behaviors from that, the effect and the memory of that. Now, if I showed you a picture of a cut hand, we've all seen those pictures. I know some of us are like, oh yeah, look, show me the picture. Other people are like, I don't ever want to see those.
Yeah, you'll lose some people.
You'll lose some people with those.
Yeah.
If you show them a picture that has a certain impact, but it lasts longer in the memory when it's more vivid.
Yeah.
Now, does that last forever? No.
No.
And any emotional impact that you do when you're communicating, you've got to recognize that it will have a longer impact, but it's still not going to be forever. So I think when you're thinking about crafting your story or crafting your pitch, the emotions, the authenticity in emotions is important. That's kind of what you were tying to, Mark. It has to be authentic. I can't just tell a story and it could land flat if it's not authentic. But also, how is that emotional impact going to, like you said, drive behavior? And what's the time period you need to continue those stories?
Reinforcement.
Yeah.
You're going to need reinforcement.
So long ago when I was first in the Navy, they had a thing. They'd play these videos before Christmas or Thanksgiving. Whenever there was a big leave period and everybody's going to hit the road, they'd play these videos. And one of them was called Signal 30, and it was from the Ohio State Police. And they started off at this accident scene, real live footage. And this woman was screaming, and there was her daughter standing over there. And you could hear her screaming like bloody murder. And they said, that woman is dying. Her mother is dying. She did whatever it was she did to wreck the car. And now she's going to have to live with that the rest of her life.
Good
and
gosh.
Then they had another picture of a guy who was cut in half by the door out of his car, and his body was laying there on the ground. It was very vivid. And so then the Navy did a study on how long this lasts. And it was a week to 2 weeks. Yeah. So if you played this right before they went on leave, maybe guys would be, while they drive home, be better drivers than if they hadn't seen this. But I don't know. I saw lots of these videos. That was a common thing to do back then.
Yeah, I did in a fire department. They try to shock you into, and I will admit, it doesn't really work long term. To your point, I think you're right that initially you're like, good Lord, and then after that you kind of rationalize. Your brain can rationalize. Yep, that was them. They must have done something wrong. I would never do that. We all think nothing can happen to us.
The guy got cut in half. It was wearing seatbelts. It was a seatbelt, wear your seatbelt video, because he was half thrown out the car when the door ran into a tree, and
that's rough.
It was like a scissors. There was the end.
Yeah.
Well, and you'll become desensitized.
Correct.
That's right.
You see
so many of these.
Right.
Yeah,
you will, and that's what I was getting to. Is they showed us so many that we learned to manage it mentally, like psychologically. And that's why we used to call it firehouse humor. It's pretty dark, but that's how we coped with stuff, But I think we're talking about you run the risk of creating risk fatigue. I said risk like 2 times in a row right there, didn't I?
Risk
fatigue is a real thing. And so you've really, and that's where having a strategy comes in. And I love the approach of saying what, so what, and what next. So what do I need to communicate? What are we talking about? Like something happened and we want to tell everybody about. So what? Like, does it make that big of a difference or an impact? If you can honestly say yes and bounce it off of a couple of people and say, yeah, this is significant. This is something that we have to learn from. Then you go to, okay, well, what does that mean then? And you go into your communication strategy. You should have a communications channel matrix. All the ways we can communicate with our population, right? With our organization. What is that best suited for? Video, long form, short form, links, document sharing, things like that. Some chat apps aren't good for that. Some are, like Slack is real good for sharing video files and other files they can download. Email is good for long form. So you have to figure that out because you're going to need to have multiple messages go out for the same thing. That's where you scale it. So that also gets to what Alex was saying is this, you can't just say something once and people get it, right? But you also don't want to resend the same thing via email. And they're like, I got this email last week.
The same thing 9 times.
Right.
You got to have the 9 times to remember it. But
it could be 9 different versions across different channels.
Get it in there in different ways.
Yeah.
And, and I'm thinking through some of these things. You're talking about the what and making sure people understand the what, and you understand the what before you communicate it. I think you have to understand that with a story too.
Yes.
So you've got to have that narrative arc. You've got to understand where your story is going. I think, have you guys ever heard a story and it rambled on and they kept going and you just were like, I don't know what the point of this was. I think I was supposed to learn something.
You just described most of our podcasts.
Oh, I don't think so. Those go places.
Oh, we go places.
But having a beginning, a narrative point, and a conclusion that people can take away.
Yep.
Really structure your story, what you're communicating, and this can be, I think from like an incident communications. What we work with clients, telling that story. We teach a snap chart, which is a timeline of events. When I present out what's the thing we tell people to present? Well, you start with why this is important.
Yes.
So we had a major incident. I call it the Quentin Tarantino method of talking about an incident. What happened? Oh, well, this severe injury occurred, or we had this equipment failure that cost us $100,000 in damages. Okay, now people are paying attention to this. Now I can take them through what happened, and they can understand, oh, all these things led up to that big problem I'm thinking about. And so having that narrative arc in your story, whether it's communication of safety incidents or corrective actions, is really helpful at getting people to connect with your story.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's storytelling 101, and it's not exclusive to safety or quality improvement or system improvements. Just Google effective storytelling, and you'll get it, right? You need to use those strategies in your communications. And remember, you have to scale them. You have to match them to the proper communications channel. Like the message you send about this thing you need to know about is going to read and speak differently at a 5-minute stand up before the beginning of the shift. Maybe you refer back to some other longer piece that's waiting for them in their email inbox. And then they read that, and then maybe there's some feedback loop, or you've got to have this multi-pronged approach to communications, but it shouldn't feel like, you're getting beat with it. It should feel natural, and that's where developing that voice, making sure that it is appealing, it's emotional, it's sincere, balance the positive emotions with the negative. All of those things have to go into your strategy. When I started digging into it, it's way more involved than like a safety nerd would think. Most of us, it's like, don't do this. This is what happened. Don't do that. Very, very short, sweet. But we can't communicate with people like that. That's not how I would want to hear things. So think about that. All of these things. What else are you thinking of when it comes to storytelling?
And I may toss this over to you. Taking notes out of marketing, out of three of us, I'm throw marketing over to you for this, but how does marketing and the ways you communicate with marketing apply to safety communication?
Well, there's formal marketing and there's less formal marketing, and I think one thing we've mentioned, but probably have underestimated, is how many times you need to communicate something before they get it.
Yeah.
And in marketing, it says 21 times before somebody buys. 21 times, holy cow!
Yeah.
That's a lot. You can't just put the same advertising in front of somebody 21 times, because they're going to turn off.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to think of new creative ways of telling the same story, getting the same message across, communicating, and different mediums, different, some will be written, some will be, it could be a podcast,
visual,
some could be, I hate to think of slogans and posters, but I suppose that counts. But you got to have a lot, and you got to continue it, and it's really like it never can stop. If it's just a safety message, you've got to continue to do this without boring people.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line between here we go again and that was really interesting.
Right.
And I need to pay attention when they're talking.
And I think that's maybe where you could include the creatives, right? Some of us are more creative than others. I don't have as much of a creative gene. At least I got the genes, but I don't have the visual creativity as others. So I go get help on it. So I'll go talk with Anne or Emily, and they'll help build something in Canva that can, be pretty and look nice that I can use. And so getting those resources, like you said, there's people in your company that have those. Maybe it's those banners, but they have those abilities in Photoshop or in just some sort of creating tool to make, other methods.
Something pretty.
Make something pretty, because, while I'm a very driver, we had the driver conversation, I'm very dry. I don't need pretty. I need functional and quick. But
just give me the message.
Just give me the message. I don't want a long-winded, but I need the message. But there's other people that need to see. They want the longer, they want the pretty stuff.
That's a good point. There's different personality styles.
Yes.
And whatever your marketing message is needs to touch on all those personality
Bingo.
styles over time.
Yeah.
That is another one.
Yeah. So you have to think about the diversity of your messaging. That's key. You are going to have right brains, left brains. You're going to have some people that are in different parts of their career. They have different jobs. So it goes back to knowing your audience. But even a large group of what we would classify as the same types of workers, like frontline workers. Among the frontline workers, there are all kinds of different types of people that consume information in different types of way. That is why you cannot say, well, we sent an email, like we hung a poster, that's crazy.
I think about, and I'm going to refer back to the DISC model, because that's what they talked back in there. And we've got all those different personalities in our office. And so you'd have something like, for me, I want the one sentence. I'll read the top of the email to make sure I know what it's about. You
might read the executive summary. You certainly won't read the whole article.
Yeah. But Becky, fantastic. She's that very much analytical personality. She's going to read the entire email. She's going to check that you read the entire email and bring it up.
She's going to ask you questions about things that are way deep down in there on page 21.
And so,
that he didn't read.
That I didn't read. But I'm going to hear about it from her, go, okay, let me think. Okay, I've got the answer, right? Because I'm a driver. I have all the answers. So, your communications, if I send out a 200-page report to a facility and I expect them to read all that, there are facilities and there are people in there that will, but there's also personalities that won't. And so thinking about drivers, we want short, sweet. Analyticals, they want the details. They want to process it and time to process it.
A graph or a chart.
There's the social one that they want to discuss it in a group and come to a consensus on it. And then the amiable people want to have the emotion behind it. They want to have they want everybody to be happy. Everybody to be happy. So we're all in agreement on this.
Oh, agreeable people.
So the agreeable type.
They're all in HR.
So having,
except for that one person,
having your communications where you have that direct communication, you have that social element, you have those agreements parts, and you have the details. You've got to maximize each of those and recognize that you can't hit everybody with all 4 of those because they're going to hate 3 of them.
Yeah. And what he's talking about fits in your strategy. This has to be a purposeful approach to how we communicate. You can't just say, well, I heard Alex say once at a global summit that I got to send this out to like in 5 different ways. This should be mapped out in some way in a communication strategy, a playbook. You do have to create almost this policy and procedure where you create this matrix of all the communications channels, and you have a minimum. I have to send this out 3 different ways, 3 different channels. This one message, so I have to scale it, and then I've got to send it one way for frontline workers, but supervisors need to know it, so we're going to communicate it in this channel with that group, So you have to plan this out.
So let me ask the group here, what are some of the methods that you guys use to communicate, we'll take safety for example here, communicate safety incidents to other parts of your organization?
Intranet. We have an in-house intranet site that we post our safety with, safety blasts, our root cause analysis also.
So you send out safety blast on a company intranet, and how do people see that?
We do send them out via email, but they are available linked to on the intranet, so they can either read the email or click on the intranet and review it.
So there's an email with a little attachment, but also a link to go see more information, something like that. How many of you guys raise your hand if that's something similar to what you do? Maybe you send out, so 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, that's the same kind of thing. You might be sending it out as a 1-pager PDF or 1-pager PowerPoint.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you get any statistics on how many people read it and how many people don't from when you send it out?
No, we don't. It's actually been a fairly new addition, but that'd be something I'm very interested in seeing.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Thinking about it from marketing perspective,
Yep.
if I'm sending out an email, I want to know who opened it. I want to know if they read it. Ideally, I would love to know if they did something about it. If you could connect those two, that's a really powerful way to see, is your communication that you're doing, is it producing results? Now, again, think about maybe just different personalities or different people. You're going to have some people that are going to open that up and read it religiously. How are you going to communicate that same impactful information to the people that don't?
That's why I asked the question, because
In person.
That is a communications channel that you should have mapped on your matrix and checked off at how you're going to do that.
Yeah, so you could go in person and share. Now, some of you, that might require you traveling around the country, right? That could be. So leadership often has to do that. They do those site traveling audits, and part of your strategy is saying, hey, I know who the leaders are that are going to be coming around here. These are some of the most important safety communications that we've had, and I want to make sure that I'm working with our leadership to communicate the values of these and have them look for them while they're doing those site visits. Because maybe I can't travel to all of them.
hopefully they agree with you.
Well, yes, that would be ideally as you get their agreement. If you've got that alignment within your organization, man, think how powerful that could be is your guys saying, hey, these are the kind of things we've been communicating. Have this a part of your leadership checklist as well while they go in sites, is check in on those.
Okay,
key
now
things.
you said something key, and you've said this on a previous podcast episode. Why do we do audits or inspections? It's an opportunity for what? To improve? To improve what? The thing you're looking at? But what else?
It's an opportunity to improve the processes, but also it's an opportunity to measure the performance that you have right now.
Okay.
Sometimes you need to.
What's your answer?
So my
I love this one.
my definition, my point of an audit. What's the point of the audit? It's to demonstrate what leadership cares about. It's your demonstration of care for people and your systems, because you want your systems to work and protect people. It's what matters to leadership, right? If I'm going to go onto the shop floor and look at things, I want to look at things that are important to me as a leader. So if PPE is important and I see somebody not wearing PPE, my responsibility as a leader is to engage, understand why they're not wearing it, but also to coach on the importance and why those things are in place. So all those things that we audit and we send leaders out and we go out ourselves to audit is really about demonstrating what we care about. Now there's the compliance element. You got to come to my course if you want to hear about compliance element to it, but you've got to balance that. So a lot of people think audits, they go right to the compliance element. Are they following the rules or not? But if we really start approaching audits from a demonstrating what we care about approach, and then your communications with people isn't, are you following the rule or not? But I care about this rule and I want to understand what's stopping us from being able to follow it, or also why there's non-compliance. What in our systems are allowing that non-compliance to occur?
And that is a communications channel, but I'll flip it to another word. That is a vehicle that we can use to get a sentiment across in a genuine way, to Mark's point of and that's public relations. How are we relating to our workers, our organization, face to face, right? So public relations includes, and anytime we go out and interact with anybody, a meeting, an audit, or an inspection, if you've got managers, supervisors going out with a checklist, and then they come back and it has checks on it, and they said, I did it, that's a punch. We missed an opportunity to stress, to demonstrate with emotion, with positive emotion, set a good example to demonstrate this is what we care about. It's important to us. Of all the things I could come out here and say and talk about, this is what I'm choosing to say and talk about. That has to leave an impression. And it's like a drum beat. It has to be consistent. And that's culture, right? So you can use something as simple as an audit or an inspection to go out there on the floor. And so we have to train and coach and equip and develop our leaders, dare I say hire for that, to be able to do that. And they're the ones that are interacting with the frontline workers and with the rest of the organization. So that's a great vehicle we could use.
And I think if you think about, again, tying this back to strategy and communications, I can go out and say one thing on the shop floor, or say things as I do investigations, right? I can coach people through. A lot of people in this room are certified trainers. They're certified to teach the TapRoot methods. So they're championing and speaking about the values of TapRoot in their organization. Well, what types of communications do those students go out and have on the floor? Do they know the points to share with operations, to share with operators, to help them understand that TapRoot is a process that's not looking at blaming people, but looking at changing the systems that they work in? And so having communication strategies gets you to say, okay, I want to communicate this in training, but I also want to make sure that I'm coaching and allowing my people that I've trained to go out and coach. It's kind of the make apostles form.
I've often said if you're going to do any kind of training at all, I don't care what it is, if you're not motivating people out the door to do something different, to engage with other people, or that's that call to action. Yep. That you can't just go, okay, any questions? All right, thank you, and you're out. So we're going to have a call to action for you too after this.
Let me bring up something a little bit different. You asked about doing audits, and I thought about Admiral Rickover's quote of you get what you inspect, not what you expect. Mm-hmm. And so by going out and doing your audits, you were showing what you expected. And I don't remember any positive communications ever coming from Admiral Rickover. Don't remember that ever happening.
You were duped.
I don't remember it ever. I don't remember any positives hardly in the nuclear Navy. It was always looking for problems and what are you going to do about it? But there was a consistent message 99% of the time across it. And part of it was because he had a consistent message. And when a new ship went to sea for the first time, he was on it. If you were in the shipyard or in port, he had Naval Reactors representatives who would come in and do audits. And they would send their results back in to Rickover. And if they didn't find anything, he would call them and chew them out.
Didn't look hard enough.
When they did find things, which mostly they did because there's always things to find, he'd call the CO of the ship and chew them out. So the CO knew he was going to get... The CO had to write letters, I think it was weekly in the shipyard and monthly when you were at sea, to Rickover, telling him several different things. What training was held, who attended it, what did they cover, what inspections were done by the CO and the engineer, and the officers below them did inspections too, but I don't think that got reported up to Admiral Rickover, what they found. And he was looking for them to find problems and what they were doing about them. And so that is maybe all negative communications, but it was consistent and it was all the time.
And did it create a culture or influence the culture?
There was a culture created. And some people liked it and some people left.
I can see that, yeah.
Which is what happens. And it was very, very impactful for everybody who was there. And there was a good need for it because we were running reactors. And if you screw up, it could be a bad thing, not only for those on board, but if you're sitting in port or some other place for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So it was really important. And he was very consistent in his message. And so much so that even, gosh, how long is it now? It's been over 40 years since he retired. And that message is still going forward today. I often worry about how long it can go when that original person who set the standard leaves, how long it can continue before it gets diluted or changed, or because everybody when they learn something over generations, it can change.
Yeah.
And it was a very strong culture, a very strong message, but nonetheless, you have to worry about it being diluted over time, especially when it's a very strong culture.
And change, continuous improvement is going to happen. The military is a great example of, a structured way of communicating. Whether you love it or hate it, you can't deny the process, right? It's a well-established process. You actually don't deviate from it. That is a no-no, right? There are some repercussions from deviating from it. There's a chain of command. There's a way they communicate. So I'm not saying it has to be that technical and dry and rigid in your organizations, but it should be organized. So I would say, how are we doing on time? So we can.
We're good.
We're good.
What's good mean?
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Define good. Okay. So let's do some Q&A if anyone has any questions about communication strategy, how we communicate, storytelling, anything we've talked about, and you can ask anybody.
Yeah. So we're just starting a process with learning reviews in our organization, and we're starting off with high potential events, even injuries that could have been fatalities, and we're having the sites come on and share the story, their investigation, the key learnings, and the immediate audience is leadership, with operations from all businesses, and we're recording those webinars basically and putting them out there almost like a video cast.
Mm-hmm.
How would you promote that to the organization to have others go and watch that and spend 30 minutes of their time?
So the question was, in case the microphones don't pick it up, the question was you're having learning reviews where sites present to leadership, the what, the why, the what, and the
incidents,
what's next. And they're recorded, and so you're asking how can you promote those videos and where they are to encourage people to watch them. Can I ask, what do you just use an intranet? Do you have sort of an inside YouTube type of?
We have a SharePoint.
Okay.
So SharePoint.
We can upload these as just video files.
Yeah. Is it high friction? Meaning, like I got to click a link, I got to log in, I have to have access to the SharePoint. I might be locked out, but
it's all intranet, and
okay.
Once you click it, it goes through Microsoft Stream.
Okay, got it.
So I would say first, make it as engaging as possible, right? Because nobody wants to watch a boring meeting. We can all agree with that. I would also think about, in that meeting, leadership's response to the incident and either the questions they ask or in how they respond to how people communicated what they've learned will make a big impact if people see that in a positive light. So I don't know how you can't tell your managers to behave. That's not what I would say. But I think you should think about, okay, the people that do this, is there a reward structure in place? Is there something that is a benefit of doing it? And if it's a benefit of doing it, other people may watch it to understand what was successful about it.
And that can't be the only way they learn about the results and what's changed and how are we improving certain processes. But I would also recommend some editing.
Yep.
If there are 5 sites presenting, those are 5 different videos because they'll be shorter and I won't have to scrub to find the one that's most interesting to me or maybe that impacts me. That's a process change that is somebody else's area and not me, but the third presenter is mine. So break them up.
I'm not sure that makes good video.
It won't. Well,
Oh no, let me finish here. Management presentations have a purpose in presenting to management, and that's to get information across to them. But a video of that may not have much impact. Let's say scream at somebody or something like that. Ooh, that's good video there.
Oh, I see where you're going now.
Yeah, then it would be, oh, I want to watch it. Hey, see who they get screamed at. But that's not good video either, probably. So it's going to be really hard to make that be a good video to watch. Have you watched some of the CSB videos they make, the productions? They cost a mint to make.
Yeah.
They spend about a third of their budget, maybe even more, on video production for doing investigations. And so they probably spend, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars per video to produce those. And those are pretty impactful and they have nice, good information. And I can watch those and I don't get bored, but they're really expensive to do. So just filming a meeting.
Yep.
yeah.
I mean, you know, I get pretty bored when I watch a Zoom meeting and I'm live and participating in it, much less watching one that somebody else is in.
This right here is killing them.
So I would suggest, like you're saying, Mark, I would suggest just take the incident communication portion of it.
Yeah.
Just take that and make it as visual as possible.
But they might want to film it separately from the management.
Well,
that's
you
what I'm
might.
saying. You might film the management one and then go back and say, okay, what do we really want to take the elements and film them separate?
Well, or you just do it very low budget but engaging, and you use somebody, if you have the resource, and this is the thing, if you have the resources. I do this a lot right now. Just do like a 4-blocker approach, right? This is the why we're talking about this, what happened, what we learned, and how we're changing, and what this means to you. Sort of at the end, kind of just have that real quick, punchy with some graphics, engaging, but you just got to figure out what's going to play well with whatever audience you're trying to target. If you're trying to get everybody in the company to watch that, that might be a tough lift. Go ahead.
I got one more thing before we go on. It also depends on whether the people you're presenting this to are TapRoot trained or not. If you get into TapRootese and even your management understands it, but the rest of the people out there don't, then that might be missing something too.
Yeah. Have fun with it. I would say have fun with it and do some A/B split testing and what works, and just have fun with it.
We're having fun with our accident presentations. Oh boy.
Not the presentations. What he's asking about.
Simple and visual.
Yeah.
Make it simple and visual.
Yep.
All right, in the back.
Yeah, so all the stuff that you guys are talking about, it's real, right? As someone who had no real experience with global communications until 3 years ago, and then took over a global communications role in the company, I've learned quite a bit about what you're talking about, controlling the message and all of that. That's probably the hardest part about communications, is because everyone has a different view of what communications are supposed to accomplish, right? So you'll immediately get containment, right? Trying to be done through your communications. And you can't allow that, right? Because people think, well, if I told everybody that they're supposed to do this, then they're doing it. That's not how communication works.
Right.
Yep.
And we've got a very mature process. We send out a communication, and there's a follow-up with a toolbox talk, right? So they'll bring the communication back in personally, not just in the email. So, but the difficulty that I find is that the content creators want to change the messages, right? They want to add, they want to do a little bit more with it, and if you're not careful about that, your communications process will really be hurt very quickly.
And for the microphone's sake, the comment was about making sure you control the message, you don't allow it to become diluted by other people that are going to send it out.
I think he makes a good point,
to.
because the creatives that help make those impacts, make those communications, those creatives are creatives. Therefore, they want to add, they want to make it this and that.
More
So
dramatic.
More dramatic. It has to be more dramatic.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. You got to very much control that message. Have creatives to help make it good, but also you got to restrain creativity.
So how would you control for that, everybody? If you're going to have somebody help create graphics and a slide deck and you give them a little bit of a snippet or a narrative,
Videos.
how would you control that? I'm talking quality control. What does that mean for you?
Be clear on what you're getting across.
Well, you got to review it. Like, you've got to have that check of before it goes out, we have to approve it because we know what we're trying to get across. Somebody's going to help us in the how we're saying it, but we're going to make sure it's accurate. So, all right.
I think
You
that's
got
it.
one more comment back there?
Just depending on the volume of the content that's being created,
Yep.
you may need multiple levels of review.
Yep.
That's what we
May need multiple levels of review.
He said that depending on the volume of content, we may need multiple
Levels of review. Yes, it should scale. Yeah, absolutely. All right, I want to thank Mark and Alex for talking with me. I know we're kind of doing this, serving two purposes here. Try to get some engagement with you all here at the Global Summit, but also we're going to use this as a podcast episode. So we're going to probably do an intro in post-production and an outro to kind of tie it all together. But get a hold of any of us outside out in the hallways or whatever if you have any other questions about this important topic. And I have 3 books. I know we had the first 3 participants that raised their hand and jumped in. I'm going to give you all a free copy of Rethinking Safety Communications. Outlines almost everything we talked about up here.
And thank you, Blaine, for coming and having an experiment with us with live broadcasting.
I loved it. So I think we should do it again. All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Mark, as always.
All right, there you go. Once again, the 2024 TapRoot Global Summit with Mark Paradise and Alex Paradise. We will return in 2025 at the Global Summit. So be on the lookout for links to register and attend if you're interested. But let us know what you think. Head on over to the SafetyPro Podcast community site, and the link is in the show notes, and drop your comments. Also, if you want to grab a copy of Rethinking Safety Communications, the link is also in the show notes, and I will talk to you on the next SafetyPro Podcast.